What is up, podcast land? Welcome to another episode of the 2 Dates in the Dash podcast. I am your host, Matt Cooper, and we had a Plan B. So my guest tonight was supposed to be Fergus Matheson. He's a UK speaker, and unfortunately, technology put us in and just allow us to have a good connection. So we are going with Plan B, and Plan B is it's going to be a solo show. I'm going to be talking with my producer Taylor as well, and getting him to chime in on some stuff. I'm going to be asking people some Facebook, answering some Facebook questions, and we'll see how it goes. First of all, I want to do some house cleaning. Number one, I am in the amazing Yellow Jacket Media Studios here in Willow Grove, PA. We are live on the Squawker app. If you are not using the Squawker app to listen, you should. Shame on you. The show is brought to you by E4 Strength, which is my company. That's the beautiful part about being an entrepreneur. You can sponsor yourself. e4strength.com is the website. We make a unique piece of equipment in the strength training industry that allows us to offload weight, meaning if you had a barbell with 405 pounds on it and you wanted it to feel like 305 pounds in either the up or down direction, my device does that. Unless you understand why you would want to do that, it really doesn't make much sense. But I recommend everybody go to the website, e4strength.com, and check it out. We are proud partners of the Pittsburgh Steelers, Detroit Red Wings, a bunch of other places too. And we're very happy that we are able to provide technology to these amazing athletes so they can do their job better and more safety and with better health. So e4strength.com. Myself, I'm a speaker as well. I do a lot of things. I'm switching hats here. My website is mattcubbler.com. You can find out anything about my book, A Brother's Love, a Memoir, which details my life growing up with my brother Andy, who was autistic and stuttered and unfortunately passed away in 1989 in a violent car accident. So you go to the website, learn more about my speaking business, learn more about my leadership mentorship program. And that's also where the podcast also lives there as well. So feel free to go there, mattcubbler.com. All right. So I'm going to start the show by dedicating the show. And I'm going to dedicate this show to, who do I want to dedicate it to? I'm going to dedicate this one to, and people are going to get pissed off about this, but President Trump. And the reason why I'm and this isn't a political post, but back in the day, my former life, I was a counterterrorism expert. And I'm very passionate about protecting the United States against terrorism. And I believe it was Saturday morning, it was announced that al-Baghdadi, who was the leader of ISIS, was killed. And the world is a better place because of that. So thank you, President Bush and the United States Army, because I know Delta Force, the most elite special forces unit. I've worked with several members of the Delta Force. They are the baddest dudes on the planet. And there was no doubt in my mind when you send them in, they will get the job done. So congratulations and thank you. All right. So let's pull up a Facebook. Let's see what we got here as far as Facebook. Taylor, how are you been?
I'm doing all right, man. How about you?
I'm good. So we started a little late today. Why did we start late today, Taylor?
I happen to have this nice little doggy that I'm babysitting for my parents, and went to grab him a bowl of water, and turns out the door locks behind me. So we got to spend some quality time before we started today.
We did out in the hallway, and we could hear the dog whimpering. And we had to get Plan B into effect with a second key to open up the studio.
And now she's totally asleep. So
which is good. So we don't have to worry about barking dogs during the show.
No, she's good though.
Yeah, I wish I could say about my dog. My dog is an idiot, and he likes to howl in his sleep. And I'm talking like when a siren is going by the house, my dog will mimic it in a howl with a woo 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 woo.
I've never heard of that.
My dog. I'll have to pull up some videos. They're on YouTube. My dog is special, and he's certainly not quiet when you need him to be quiet. So this show is going to be audience guest questions. Waiting for some people to realize that we are now doing that on Facebook here. And Taylor, I'm going to ask you one question. And I honestly don't know the answer to this, so I'm going to ask the question. Who is Taylor?
Audio engineer, sports fan, music lover. Yeah, I feel like those are probably the biggest things.
All right, let's start at the top.
Okay.
Audio engineering.
Yeah.
I don't, we've had this this conversation before where I'm technologically deficient. I know what I know, and that's all I know, and I have no idea. When I decided to come to a studio, I didn't know anything about what you did, and now I understand why it's so much better than what I was doing in my extra bedroom. But yeah, tell me a little bit more about what you do as a profession.
Basically, I got to learn how a signal flow works with mics, all these cables that go into this big mixer that you'll see at any local event or like concert. You'll see one of those big mixers with all the flashing lights and stuff. So I basically need to understand how each part of it all works, because if one thing goes wrong, I got to go back and troubleshoot through each part of the mixer. Like, what was it, a bad cable, like a bad microphone? There's something not set on the mixer correctly? So it's basically just troubleshooting.
Well, it sounds like way more intellectual requirements than I'm willing to provide, and I'm glad you're here to do that.
If I can understand it, trust me, anybody else can. It's just time.
So today so I own Max Out, right? It's a gym, and we couldn't get the printer to print. Like, the communication was like, when I would hit print on the computer, it would show in a queue, and there was an error, and I couldn't figure out. I did everything that I'm to turn it on and off. Hit that little. You have to get like a pencil and hit the reset button to get the little button on the inside of the back of the modem. Like, I know that stuff, but I have zero understanding of technology. So I finally just relented after about an hour of turning everything on and off. Because, God forbid, if you turn it on and off once, it must not have worked right. If you turn it off 5 times, you think that at some point in time it would work, and it doesn't. Just in case anybody was wondering, I'm that guy that will just keep turning it on and off, hoping that maybe my turning on and off process was wrong.
Yeah.
And now I'm just trying to, do I get this first or that? So no, it still didn't work. So
I feel like everybody in the world has had printer issues. I don't think they're designed very well.
All right. Second thing you said, sports lover.
Yeah.
Are you born and raised in the Philly general area?
Yeah, I'm from Cherry Hill area, so right outside the city.
All right. Which east or south, or what is it? Cherry Hill. What's high school?
Well, I went to Haddon Township, but Cherry Hill is like the biggest town in the area.
Is there multiple high schools in Cherry Hill, like Cherry Hill?
Yeah, there's a east and west.
East and west.
Yeah, Cherry Hill's massive.
Yeah, it's kind of like Springford, where my kids go. Should be. It's kind of like turning into like Central Bucks.
Okay.
Council Rock, where they're breaking up. Because my son's got 760 kids in his class.
I think I had 170 in mine.
In your class?
Yeah.
So you're a 4-for-4 guy? For those that aren't from Philadelphia, we call it a 4-for-4. We have 4 sports teams, and there are some weird people that like 3 of the 4, and I don't know where the parenting mishap happened there and why they were led astray. But if you're from the area, you should be a 4-for-4.
Well,
you're that guy.
No, I'm not. Well, I was going to say I'm mainly NBA and NFL, but mostly NBA. So, with the Sixers only recently being good, I got used to like watching every other team. So it's like I wouldn't even have the time to check out the Flyers when I have more interest in seeing these other athletes.
So what are your thoughts on the Sixers this year?
I love it. This is the most excited I've ever been for a season.
I'll tell you what. So I played basketball since I was a kid and organized, and I was never good. I'm 6'3", 250 pounds. When I was in high school, I was 5'5" in 9th grade. But by the time I graduated, I was 6'1", and I always had a big ass. Like, I've just been a wide hips. Everybody says I have birthing hips.
You're speaking exactly how my experience is. So.
I can't jump high, but I can certainly box out. So I was great. They called me 5. I'd go and get 5 rebounds, 5 fouls in 5 minutes.
That's
and then
about
I was
me
done.
too.
But I love the game. And I'm in awe of athletes that can do everything. Like, I've been fortunate enough to be around some pro basketball players in my life. And there's a young kid that's now playing for the Spurs, who's from the city of Reading, Lonnie Walker.
Okay. Yeah, I know
And
Lonnie. Yeah.
so I did some work with their basketball program. I give inspirational, motivational talks to the team a couple times a year. And Lonnie's one of those rare kids that's got everything. Like he can run like the wind. He can jump out of the arena. He can hit the long distance
Yeah.
shot. He's got creativity when he's in the air. He finishes strong, and he's a very, very good human being and leader. And I'm amazed by the raw talent it takes to do all the things. You know, we bitch a lot about Ben Simmons, and I'm as guilty of that as anybody. And I wonder why somebody isn't able to hit a jump shot when they're in the NBA and they're spent their entire life in private basketball environments. How can you not hit a jump shot?
Yeah.
And why would you go from right-handed to left-handed? But
That is a completely fair
I don't.
question.
Yeah, I have no idea why that would be a possibility for anybody.
Yeah.
But watching somebody like Lonnie smoothly, effortlessly do everything that he does is just an amazing thing to watch. And I had the proud, I guess I'm proud of it. I had Daniel Marshall, who used to play many years. He's from Reading as well. And I went to school in Pottstown, and I had Daniel dunk on me. I was trying to take a charge.
I can say I've never been dunked on, so that's.
I was, not only was I dunked on, he dragged his nuts across my face as he went over top of me and dunked on me. Needless to say, I didn't get the charge call. And so that was one of my claims to fame in high school, was getting dunked on by Danielle Marshall. And I got dunked on by Howard Brown, who played at Villanova. And, he was much younger. He's from Pottstown, but we were playing summer league games at Spruce Street Park in Pottstown, and he was in 8th grade and he dunked on me. So I think I realized that I'm really not that good at basketball. But I can foul with the best of them, and I can rebound. I get my rebounds, and I like to throw an elbow or two. And
I feel like we have mirroring games.
Yes,
so you're speaking to me.
We should start our 5 of unathletic white guys.
Yep.
All right, the third thing, music.
Yes.
You can always, and I bet you had no idea what I grew up listening to or what my musical taste is. But what is yours? What do you normally go to?
So when I was first getting into music, it was like 70s punk and David Bowie.
Wow, I would not have guessed that.
Yeah, and then slowly just turned into, like the more newer punk, like the Green Days and all that, and then got really into hip hop, and then found some jazz stuff because hip hop samples a bunch of jazz stuff. So yeah, I'm pretty much everywhere with it, but I would say main staples are punk and hip hop.
So when did you? Because they're drastically different. The people that are listening to punk and the people that are listening to hip hop are on two different ends of the spectrum.
It's the same kind of energy, though. That's what I think's really cool about it.
Yeah. So what era of hip hop did you first start appreciating?
I'd say first big things were Wu-Tang Clan and Tribe Called Quest, and then slowly gotten into more newer underground stuff. But I digged up all the kind of history because I'm just like history nerd with any kind of music. So pretty much just dug into all of it.
I was so I grew up in Pottstown, and I didn't even know. I think the first rock and roll.
I was also blessed with the internet. I'm 28 now, so I could.
I'm 21 years older than you almost.
So yeah, I had a library of music.
So I grew up when it was actually happening. The 80s.
Yeah.
And I didn't listen to the 80s music, Duran Duran or Depeche Mode or any of that stuff.
A lot of it didn't age well.
What's that?
I said a lot of that didn't age well, I think.
I listen to it all the time now. That's all I listen to is 80s.
There's like some just like super 80s stuff. It's like, okay. But I mean, there's plenty of great music out of the 80s, but like just the early ages of using all the digital stuff, you can tell.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, the synthesizer age was just not a good.
Yeah.
But I love it. Now it's what I work out to. But I grew up with like Boogie Down Productions, EPMD.
Okay. Yeah.
Eric B. and Rakim, that
Classics.
era is my wheelhouse. And I didn't listen to rock and roll until my brother, he got a Van Halen, I guess 1984 was the album.
the
That was
baby on
probably
it.
with Jump and
Yeah.
in Panama, and that was the first time that I'd really sat down and listened to an entire cassette tape back then. And I was like, I'm not sure I dig it, and I put it to bed. I didn't listen to it again
Yeah.
until I went in the Army, and then when I got to Germany, everybody was listening to Metallica, and I had no idea what Metallica was. I
Really?
no clue.
Huh.
I mean, I'd heard of it, but I don't
Yeah,
think I'd ever
yeah.
heard a song by Metallica in my life. And so now I had this whole, like 89 to 93 where I was listening to nothing but rock. And I learned about Led Zeppelin and like the Rolling Stones,
Yeah.
and because my mom, when I grew up, we didn't have we had like a black and white TV, but it didn't work most of the time. And we listened to a lot of, my mom was she was a hippie, I guess, for lack of a better word, but she had some eclectic tastes. We'd go from like Crystal Gale country, like soft country,
Yeah.
with Linda Ronstadt and that kind of stuff, to Lou Rawls, to Barry White,
Yeah,
to
Lou Rawls is the man, yeah.
to Motown. And so that's what as a kid, I was growing up with all that. And then when I got into, the middle school, high school era, that's when hip hop just took over my life. And
It was a new hot thing at the time.
yeah. And then I stopped listening after, I guess NWA was the last, and I didn't like NWA. I appreciated their boldness and their FU mentality.
Yeah.
But I didn't like the way that rap went from being lyrically unique in that coming up with rhymes that didn't require the N-word or Bay or Shorty or any of the other things that got come up, that they were able to create meaningful music that didn't require it to get dumbed down to the lowest possible equation, which is just using cuss words to filler.
Yeah.
Right. So that's when I stopped listening to rap. And then I got into country. And the reason,
that's the only avenue I haven't traveled down.
So when I was in the Army, there was I was in Germany for 3 years, and to meet girls that aren't in the Army, you have to go wherever the girls are, right? So there was a country music bar outside of the post I was on, and literally stumbling distance, and that's all they played was country, Garth Brooks and all that. So I didn't know anything about that, but I figured I might as well start learning, and then I'd learn how to two-step in order to dance with a girl, and then it's downhill from there. But success was made through that decision to like country, and I actually started to really appreciate it, because once you look at country music songwriting, it's very similar to like a James Taylor or like how a song back, especially in the early to mid 90s, country music was singer-songwriter country music. And my truck broke down, my dog died, that kind of stuff. But there was also a lot of storylines behind each song, and I appreciate that, because I write and I did poetry when I was younger, and that's why I wrote a lot of raps. But so I appreciate song structure.
Yeah, I feel like I was always turned off because of the singer-song stuff that you were saying. But I mean, older country I've heard, like from the 70s and like early 80s, I do like. Yeah,
and then that's when it, it jumped the shark, like 96, 97 is when country became pop.
Yeah.
And then I stopped listening. I don't listen to country today. But it's funny. You can always tell, you either can tell a lot about somebody's personality through their music, or learn a lot about somebody's personality.
Yeah.
When you've I would have never guessed punk.
Yeah.
You don't have an ounce of punk in your vibe right now. Like that's not, other than maybe your glasses, but that's more of like a retro 60s look, the rounder lenses.
Well, my parents said the only thing in their will is for me to not have any tattoos if I want a part of it. So
really,
I guess that would have thrown that off. Yeah.
Oh, I got plenty of tattoos. And so would you have, if that wasn't a rule, would you have gotten a tattoo?
I'm sure I just was never really dying for it. I guess more part because I've seen all my friends' very regrettable tattoos that they got when they were like 19. And now looking back on it, it's like, oof, probably dodged a bullet there.
Yeah. I mean, luckily the military.
Well, yeah, that's a completely different thing. Yeah.
Like I learned early on that the value of, I've seen some bad tattoos
that's
on like 70-year-olds.
Yeah.
And you're like, you didn't think that one through before. Yeah. And the tramp stamp is by far the funniest tattoo on any. I've seen guys with them, but for girls, and you're like, when you got that, did you think that the word tramp stamp was going to become a thing? Like that, and then even worse, if you were a tramp stamp after it became a tramp stamp, like you knew what it was going to be called, and you still got that tattoo. Then I question your decision making. Growing up in South Jersey.
Yes.
I'm not from South. I'm in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. So I don't know a whole lot about South Jersey, but sports, from what I can remember, what I know now, is gigantic in South Jersey, just like it is in southeastern Pennsylvania.
Yeah, definitely football, even though we were never good at my school. But our soccer team, when I was in school, was actually really, really, really good. One of the top in the state.
That's not a sport. Don't get offended, soccer people. I just don't understand the sport. I don't understand a sport that requires that much running and so little participation in the outcome, like the scoring component. Like there's only like 3 or 4 people that ever score goals. It's not like,
I actually grew a lot of appreciation just from playing FIFA on like PlayStation growing up.
Again, I don't have any idea what you're talking about. I'll give you I never had a video game system.
Huh. Okay.
And
that's
until I had kids, and I still don't. I tried playing it, and I just get frustrated.
That's probably one last thing I left out. Is I'm definitely like grew up playing a lot of video games, and that ironically enough like introduced me to a lot of music, because like the Madden games, Tony Hawk games would have all licensed music, so it was like almost having like a cool older brother like show you like all this music like you would never find by yourself.
I never would have thought of it that way.
Yeah.
Now, how did you get into the podcast? Because I don't know if I told you this, but I didn't know what a podcast was until April of 2018. I'd heard the term. I just thought it was like, sports radio after they had their show that they just download it and put it on their website. Like you call it a podcast. Like that. I just thought it was a replay of a show. And I'm like, well, I heard it already, so I'm not going to listen to it. It wasn't until I started to be a guest on podcasts and then just sort of trying to find more podcasts to be a guest on and understanding the different types of shows there are and how many there are out there.
Yeah.
I had no clue. I don't know how I didn't know that, because I'm not that old. I'm not that unaware, on what's going on. I'm on social media all the time, but how did I not know the importance of podcasting? How did you get introduced to being an engineer on podcast?
So Wildfire Radio started up in Collingswood, which was basically the town next to me. And I was bouncing in between jobs after college, and that was like probably the most consistent audio work that I've gotten. So literally just stuck with them, and then met John later on, and I'm also here now too. So yeah, it's literally that simple.
But what was it like? Were you trying to get a job at like traditional radio?
Like I've bounced in between like recording studios in Philadelphia, and basically they just get the younger guy to do all the projects they don't want to do and don't pay them much. And then I felt like I was more valuable than that after a while, working that hard and still not really getting that much out of it.
So when is your degree in
audio,
audio engineering? Or is that what the degree is? I know like certain people get degrees in, like my goddaughter got a degree in, I think it's museum curating or something. I don't know, like working at a museum.
Oh, okay.
And I thought listen, I'm not going to tell her what to do or what not to do, but I'm like, of all the things, and her sister got one in Shakespearean theater. And of all the things that, if you're looking at how many jobs are out there, like, I don't know how many people went and got that degree, but I'm sure they're all fighting for the same 10 jobs. Like, is it that way?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a ton of competition. I would say I have a couple of my friends, they didn't go to the same school as I did, but, studied audio very intensely. And I'd say besides me, only one that's literally just been working, producing his own music and producing music for other bands has really made a career out of it.
It's got to be tough.
Yeah. It's honestly, if I didn't know it was this hard, I probably would have looked into something else.
Well, the cool thing is that you're getting in a medium, and I don't know how many. My information isn't great as far as understanding podcasts.
Yeah.
Like there's the fact that there are networks now,
Exactly. Yeah.
similar to radio networks
Yeah.
that are growing and podcasts are joining. This is, and I'll be honest with you, and this isn't a slam wildfire
Sure.
podcast, but I really wasn't going to do this with John again. I wasn't a fan of what happened at Wildfire with just my show, not anything of the other stuff, but the attention that was, because I was syndicated, I wasn't in studio. I just felt like it was whatever, and I was paying money to be a whatever, and I'm like, this isn't, and no one was communicating with me. So I had a really salty feeling towards this whole podcast network thing. And, I was doing it for free out of my bedroom, and it was doing well. And I thought, hey, I got a good mic and I don't have to pay for any of the services and posting it. And it's everywhere that I want to post it to. But I can honestly say that, John and I had a couple of real deep talks, and I wanted to make sure that what I was getting myself into just wasn't an in-studio version of what was happening at Wildfire. And I'll be honest with you, this has been an amazing, between your efforts and the work that you do and the social media exposure that they're putting out for everybody. And, so if anybody is out there that is looking to be a part of something, the podcasting world over the last, I'm coming up on a year in 2 weeks. And that's pretty cool that I've had a show that's, thanks. This is my 58th, 58th episode. And
it's not an easy thing to keep up with. I feel like everybody thinks the podcasting thing is easy, and it's really not once you get into it.
I think if I had advice for anyone, I did a former employee of mine who's a really good guy. He's starting his own podcast, and I was his second guest, and we did the interview yesterday. And when I tell you the quality of what he's putting out is going to be amazing. I don't know if it's sustainable.
Yeah.
And we talked about this. I said, listen, dude, he had a guy that has like a film production company come in with two camera angles, mics, sound equipment, the whole thing. And they bring it to the location and set up. And
I imagine that's a nice invoice.
Yeah, well, I think there's some business agreement they're doing for good. Yeah, but
that's a lot of work.
And I said, what's your plan?
Yeah,
I said, because I'm happy to do this. I'm honored to do it, but I don't know if what you're doing here is sustainable for a podcast. I said, he's like, well, I just want to put out a great product. I'm like, well, I learned a long time ago that 80% is way better than trying to get to 100.
Yeah,
because if you're trying to get to perfect, you're always going to fall short, and you're going to end up never getting out of your own way. When if 80% is your goal, then 80% is enough. And then if you exceed that, it looks even better.
Sure.
And, I was doing 80% for 9 months out of my bedroom with no understanding of what I was doing other than messing around and seeing if it looked good enough for me to be willing to put my face out there on the internet, or my voice. But if I was going to give advice to anybody doing a podcast, it's to figure out what not only what is your podcast about, but who is your podcast for.
Yeah. I was going to say, if you get a niche audience, that's the most perfect thing, because you can find people that really care about this one specific thing, and they're looking for somebody to talk about that one specific thing.
And I went the opposite direction.
Yeah.
Intentionally, though. So my show is a show about amazing stories, and the amazing story doesn't have a topic, right? There's no,
but it's a consistent theme still.
Yes, it's all the theme is consistent. I just want people, if you can come on and tell a story, I don't care if you're famous, not famous, as long as you have a story to tell, and that story would be compelling for other people to listen to, and you can tell it well.
Yep.
That's really the whole thing about podcasting. And if you're going to do a solo podcast, which this is by far harder. Like if I had to sit here for 30 minutes and just look at myself on a video screen.
I've seen it done.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to come up with. I watched that show, God Friended Me, on CBS. It's on Sunday nights, I think. What day is today? Monday? Yeah. On Sunday nights. And the lead of the show is this black guy who has a podcast. and he's trying to
Oh,
grow
I've
his
heard about this.
podcast.
Yep,
And he got this friend request from the God account on Facebook, and they send him friend requests, which are people that need, for whatever reason, God thinks they need help. And he talks about it on his podcast. So, but it's a solo. And I just look at him going, like, I know guys that do like 15-minute solos. I get that. That's easy. You can come up with a topic and pontificate for 15 minutes. My show's an hour. There's no way I could do an hour-long show talking about anything without losing track of what the hell I'm talking about and start rambling and mumbling and
maintaining the listeners.
Right. So getting guests. So for me, it started with as a speaker, as an inspirational speaker, I'm in a bunch of groups with other speakers, people that follow speakers. So it was easy to figure out who I wanted to have on as a guest, and I would just ask them. And every speaker wants to go on podcast because it's free publicity and it allows them to share their message and grow their audience and all that kind of stuff.
Giant skill to have too.
Yeah.
For this.
Yeah, absolutely. And being able to talk to somebody, whether you're in front of a room full of people or sitting on the other side of a glass talking to your producer, it's a skill. Like a lot of people don't have conversational skill sets.
Yeah, I had to work on that myself too. So,
and it's something that you have to work on.
Yeah,
and the more you do it, the more comfortable you become with it. And I think podcasting has really helped me. I was always a talker. I was always a good talker as far as holding conversation, having interesting stories, listening. Like those are skills I have. My wife will tell you I don't listen very well, but I think I'm a fantastic listener. But people that I've been on podcasts where people just give you 5 questions ahead of time, and those are the 5 questions you're going to talk about.
Interview,
and it's just very awkward. I actually had one of my first podcasts. It's probably my 3rd or 4th I scheduled to do, and I'm trying to remember the name of it. Something Man. Order of Man, maybe, I think it was called. Anyways, the guy was like a top 50 podcaster in the country.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to get on a show. Somehow I got on. And I get on the show, and he's like, and he didn't like give me any, like, this is what the show is going to be about. And I don't care. I can wing anything.
Sure.
And we get on. He's like, all right, are you ready? I said, yeah. I said, I said, what's the format going to be? He goes, you're going to give me your best 30-minute presentation. I said, about, he goes, whatever, your best 30. That's what the show is. You're presenting. Imagine you're on a stage. I'm like, yeah, no, that ain't going to work. I'm not that guy. I'm not the guy that's going to sit there and just, vibe for 30 minutes and wonder whether or not you're still listening, or I need to have feedback. I need to be able to see people if I'm speaking. I said, it's very odd. He goes, I said, I'll give it a shot. And I would start it for about 7 minutes. I'm like, you know what? This doesn't work.
Yeah.
And look, it wasn't live. It was recorded. So I said, I'm going to bow out.
It seems like lazy planning because it doesn't really seem like there was a purpose behind.
I'll be honest with you. I think he didn't want.
Or that. Yeah.
He didn't. If I was going to be on his show, I was going to have to wow him.
Yeah.
And whatever his expectation of wowing was. And it wasn't going to be a great interviewer having a conversation with a guest and eliciting information or content from that person. And that's what I try to do with my show. And I'm like, and that actually made me really focus in on what I wanted to do as a host. Like, I don't want to have a conversation with myself.
Yeah.
I don't want to dominate a show when I have a guest on. I had one guy, one time, a guy named Lauren Harris. He came on, it was an hour-long show, and I think I timed it. I spoke outside of the introduction when we got into the interview. Out of a 52-minute interview, I spoke for 3 minutes. And there was one point, he went on for like 25 minutes straight. And I just kept letting him go. I'm like, he's on a roll. I'm not going to, I'm not stopping him. And that was a little bit awkward because I was like, should I be talking? Like,
yeah, it's like at what point does it become rambling?
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, the dude is a professional, so
Sure.
he certainly held his point and his topic. But I was just like, I'd never had one where that was it wasn't a give and take. It was just, I asked a question, he just went on a roll, and then when I felt a breath coming,
Yeah.
I lobbed another counter or another question out. But it was most of them are pretty much like we're doing right now, just back and forth, and that's to me a comforting feeling.
Yeah, you like I said before, you don't want somebody rambling on or over describing something or getting too
Right.
in depth to something when people don't care about all the depths of whatever you're trying to
Right.
describe.
Yeah. So it's podcasting is a medium that if you allow it to be a piece of you, like who you are as a person, like Frankie and John, their show, 215 Live, that's who they are.
Yeah, unapologetically
right.
them.
Yeah. And I think that's why it resonates with everybody's, because it's
unique because it's them. Yeah.
And it's not there's enough sports shows out there talking about whatever happened the night before or what's upcoming, and everyone seems to do that, but not everybody can do that in a way that makes it seem like two dudes are at a bar and you just happen to be overhearing their conversation.
Yeah.
Talking about whatever it is they're talking about. And I think that's the coolness about their show. And why I sponsored it. I saw something in their show when they first started on regular radio, on 610 a.m. ESPN, doing their show for the first year. I was their sponsor. My company was. So I saw their potential. And I'm glad that, they're part of this, because I probably wouldn't have come over if they weren't part of it. And I just think this studio itself, the business of being a network, has a lot of potential.
Yeah.
I think that obviously that's part of the reason why you're over here too. So you see that the more shows are coming on, is more ability for you to continue to do your thing you spent all this time learning.
If I see somebody that's passionate and that cares as much as I do, I'll follow them wherever they go.
And that's a special kind of leadership.
Yeah.
And that's another topic. Do you consider yourself a leader?
I would say the past couple of years, I've definitely like subconsciously kind of like gained that role, just because people always ask me questions, like whether it's like little things or like bigger things. I mean, even in and outside of my job. So yeah, it's kind of weird. It felt like it just happened overnight.
And that's not something you were accustomed to doing growing up. Like you didn't find yourself in leadership positions growing up?
No, I would say growing up, my mother or my older sister would literally like speak for me or like tell me what I'm going to order at the restaurant.
Right.
So it's kind of like something I had to learn myself. Once again, like subconsciously, I wasn't really like focused on doing it. It just kind of happened that way.
Right. So was there a transitional moment? Like, was there, because a lot of people, whether it's leadership or business or relationships, there's a pivotal moment that when you look back on it and you think about, how did I get this change, this shift in who I am and get to me where I am? There's usually something that triggered that.
I think just getting more responsibilities in my job and career. I can't really pinpoint something, but I feel like it's just getting more responsibilities and understanding what I have to take care of.
So probably more confidence.
Yeah, that too.
Like believing in yourself and what you're capable of doing.
Yeah.
And that people undervalue. I was talking to one of my strength coaches today about an athlete that, as unfortunately in our business with student athletes, you have to deal with parents. And it's no different than being a coach on a sports team. You have to deal with parents of your athletes. And sometimes those expectations parents have are unrealistic. And sometimes they're under realistic. And just talking to her about the psychology of how to get a kid to believe in something, and the power of getting someone to see their own potential, appreciate the work that they put in to get to where they are, and then see where that potential can take them, and have a plan, a process to go and achieve that.
And they have to find that themselves too.
Yeah. But sometimes they need, like, as a coach, I don't get, the kids are with someone else, whether it's their teacher or their parents or grandparents, whoever they live with. There's someone else influencing their life 99% of the time they're alive, right?
Sure.
And I get them for 1 or 2 hours a week, and I got to somehow get the most out of them in the environment that I'm asking them to do something. whether it's in the gym or athletically. And that's one of the hardest things to do, is to get a kid without any knowledge of what their backstory is or what their home life's like or what the positivity or negativity is.
You have no base connection with them.
Nothing. And I just have to take what I'm seeing and try to manipulate that, for lack of a better words, into something that's beneficial for everybody.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's one of the hardest things to do. And I think in your environment where you were, you get out of college, you have a degree in something that you're not even 100% sure you can get a job at. And now all of a sudden you're seeing that you're getting these gigs and you're good at your job. And now people are wanting to know more information about how, whether it's a guy like me who has his podcast and has no idea how to get this video to record my voice and all that. Like, those are things, without that knowledge, I wouldn't be doing this show.
Sure.
And I think knowing that you have that, it's almost like a hero complex. Like, without you, the show doesn't work. And I like that. As a cop, the town's not safe without me. As a strength coach, the kid's not getting stronger and healthier without me. And it's that reliability.
Sense of purpose.
Yeah. Purpose. Good word. You should be a speaker. That's a trigger word.
I don't know about that one.
It's a trigger word. I see John Crichton just walked in. Is he playing with the dog right now?
He's doing some in the office. God knows what.
Let's not talk about that. If the door's open, we're safe. We have about 2 minutes left. This is literally was a wing it show, if there ever was a wing it show. But it was fun. I'm glad we see each other for 3 or 4 minutes before my show starts and 3 or 4 minutes after my show.
And we've done 2 shows.
Right. Because you decided to go on vacation right when my show started here.
It wasn't vacation, but...
It wasn't vacation?
No, my friend's band called Never Kept. They did a 2-week run, so I was tour managing for them.
Look at you with a roadie.
Yeah, more leadership. Trust me, that was leadership.
Yeah, I bet. Trying to corral the animals.
Getting 5 guys on the same page every day was not an easy task.
Well, one of the things I'm trying to do, Candlebox. Ever hear the band Candlebox? Yeah. So my buddy's the lead guitarist for Candlebox, and cool. He's from King of Prussia. So I'm trying to get him and Kevin Martin, who's the lead singer, the original singer.
That'd be great. To
come in studio and do like an interview with 3 or 4 songs, kind of like an in-studio radio show where they play. So that's kind of like one of my goals. So Kevin Martin,
pressure's on.
And well, the good news is Brian's wife is my publicist. So and she's the publicist for Candlebox. So I'm
huge advantage.
I'm twisting that relationship a little bit to try to get her to figure out when they're going to be local on a gig, and it may not be a Monday night. I may have to have a surprise.
We can
show.
Figure something out for sure.
But yeah, that's kind of hopefully on the nearby horizon. But that's something I've always wanted. I'm a huge. Now let me ask you this.
Yes,
we're both music fans.
Yes.
I had this dream. I consider myself a good singer, right? I can hold my own singing.
Yeah.
Not by any stretch of the imagination stage worthy, but I have a dream, a goal to sing one song. And it's probably one of the hardest songs to sing because it's Pearl Jam, Alive. So the drummer for Candlebox is Dave Crewson, who was the original drummer for Pearl Jam, who was on the 10 album with Alive and all the other great songs from that album. And I want to sing just the first verse of Alive, throw the mic and do a stage dive. And I told Brian, because they have the rights because Kevin co-wrote the song.
Okay.
To play that song at Candlebox shows. I want to sing that, and I want to sing it in the Pearl Jam. Like, people make fun of me all the time, so I like to do impersonations. And people will say Matt Cubbler, who isn't he? So, like, I'll do when the Bee Gees come on, I try to sound like the Bee Gees.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I do. When Michael McDonald's is on, which, by the way, you can do a Michael McDonald song and know 0 words. As long as you know how to sing like him when the music's playing, you're going to sound exactly like him, because he doesn't say any words, I don't think. I don't really know.
Yeah.
That's all it is. Same thing with the Bee Gees. You don't have to know any words.
Yeah, just high pitch.
That's it. You just got to have that high pitched sound and be able to harmonize. So that's my goal. My goal is to sing Alive by Pearl Jam with Candlebox on a stage. I don't care if it's in a bar or at, a festival in the summer. I want to sing the first verse, just the first one, stage dive, and then come back in at the very end. That's it.
You have an upper leg on anybody else that would want to do that, I would think.
I definitely have an in, but
Yeah.
I have to figure out how to make that work with, the concert promoters and all that kind of stuff. Just let some random dude come up and take over the mic. I'm not sure that's what they're looking for, but
just start a fake cover band and only do that, and then just run away.
That's it.
There you go.
And just YouTube the hell of it and see if I can get some traction. Now, if you had to get on stage with any band and be the singer, what would the song be and what band?
I listen to instruments like 80% of the time rather than singing, so I would definitely take a guitar.
Can you play guitar?
I can, yeah.
All right, because the live solo is an iconic solo, and if you ever Google Brian Quinn Candlebox Alive, he shreds.
I have it playing in my head right now. Yeah.
So that would be so we could do this together.
There you go.
You could get on and do the solo. You'd have to wear the clothes. You have to have the right body position with the.
I think the clothes and the body position's the easy part. Nailing that solo is the
right.
It's the real.
So Brian plays it vertical, so that where the neck of the guitar is up in the air. He'll play the solo up there.
That's good for him because I can't do that.
Yeah, me neither. But it's always that I have that. I've always had a dream. So we'll close out in a second here, but I wrote a song with another guy. So I've always said I wanted to write a song and get it recorded and then see what the hell happens. Right. Sure. So it's a country song ish. It's more of and I think it'll be a country song. So I wrote a song about my brother's death a while back, and I just held on to it. Then I got this feeling that I could write a song. So I had a guy on the show. I was doing a charity podcast, highlighting a charity, and this guy was talking about the charity, and he's also a singer-songwriter. So he took my lyric, and then I wrote out because the song I wrote about my brother's too personal. It wouldn't translate to a regular song. So I took the chorus, and then I wrote the storyline behind what I think a translatable.
Yeah, that's actually good. That's a good concept.
And then he wrote the song and did just an acoustic rough phone recording of it, and it's freaking awesome. So it's getting recorded in Nashville in February, and so I'm excited about that. So we'll do a worldwide release on the 2 Dates in a Dash podcast.
Killing it with the goals.
That's it. Listen, I had a dream since I was little. I've had it many, many, many times that I die when I'm 53.
Jeez.
And it's weird, and it's the same dream. It's not 15 different ways of dying.
Yeah.
It's always the same dream when I have it, and my wife hates when I talk about that, but it's reality. I've had that dream, and people ask me why I do all the things that I do. It's because I don't know if that shit's real.
Yeah.
I don't. So I'm not going to risk anything, and I figured if I'm going to get everything I can between I'm 48, almost 49.
That's terrifying, but I do kind of like that, way of looking at life.
I don't know. And if Facebook, you ever do one of those things on Facebook where they'll say, how will you die or any of those stupid, and all it is doing is data mining, but whatever. I did one and it said I was going to die 57. So I'm like, wow, at least Facebook gave me 4 more years. So I'm good for that. So for me, I just try to live everything I can out as often. And if there's something I want to try, I go try it. And it's working for me. So whether I live to be 103 or I die at 53, there's not going to be any boxes not checked in my to-do list in life. So that's kind of the way
that's the way to live.
That's it.
I can appreciate that.
All right, we're going to close out the show. Everybody, thank you very much for listening to this very unprepared, wing it version of the 2 Dates in the Dash podcast. I'm your host, Matt Cubbler. Thank you to my man, my producer, Taylor, for joining me on the show. And go out and be kind to one another.